All right, so welcome all to the last technical session of this conference. My name is Nikola, and I have been working with this product for the last 16 or 17 years. It's almost 17 years, actually. And the reason why I'm here today is because I'm one of the developers that was working on the Excel layouts. I was working more on the Excel and AL side, and together with me I have Niels-Henrik.
Yeah, I'm Niels-Henrik, and I actually worked on the platform side of this feature. So I'm the one that is responsible for the runtime part.
Yes. So today we want to teach you how we have built these Excel layouts, and I need to switch the clicker probably. Let's see if this one works. No, it doesn't. So it's the other one. So we need to switch it to this side, I guess. I'll just move to until we resolve this one. So for the agenda, the topic is going to be like this. So we're going to start with what we did, and I would like to thank you all that have filled the pool that we made, because we have seen that 90% of people did not see the new Excel layouts that we did. So we're going to start with the short demo of the Excel layouts that were created. Then Niels-Henrik is going to do some hardcore engineering with building the datasets, and then I'm going to take it over, and then we are going to take it into Excel, and I'll show you some Excel magic and how we created the layouts. We are going to publish the slides on the Yammer, so if you need this slide deck, you can easily find it afterwards. Now, because this is a reporting session, we need to start with the pie chart, of course, and this is the visual representation of how the time is going to be spent. So you can see that it's a very small amount of time in the actual demos, and we are going to spend a lot of time explaining how to build a specific dataset. You can also see that the time is short, so it's going to be hard to fit it within the 45 minutes. If you have questions, please come down or reach to us through Yammer. So here, the first topic of today is what we did, and also what are we planning to do in this area. And for this one, I'm going to switch straight into the demo. And we are going to start with the old stuff. So these were our old Excel layouts, and they're basically based on the Excel add-in that is fetching the data from the web services, which is good because it is refreshable. However, it's using a .NET. It's using a Visual Basic and macros. Thus, it is disabled by default because it represents a security risk. And these layouts were translated in multiple languages. However, you were not able to customize them at all. So you couldn't change anything on this specific layout. The new layouts are looking completely differently. So you can see that it is a really rich content that we are exposing. So we have pivot tables here. You have slicers, so you can slice and dice the information that you want. And basically, you can use any Excel element except Visual Basic and macros. That's the only thing that we have blocked. You're also able to create multiple customer-facing sheets. So if you want to see in additional reporting in foreign currencies, you can see it. Or if you would like to see the money based on the currency like this, you can also switch between the tabs. And the great addition that was done is that now we are able to export the data into multiple sheets. So here you can see that we have the customer aging data, which is the main set, but I can also export dimensions in separate sheets if I would like to create some nice slicers. So now it's much easier to export and organize the data and actually build the reports. If you want to access the reports, they are right next, the new reports are right next to the old reports. And the difference between them is that the new ones have preview attached to them. And the reason why we did this is because we were relatively late with implementing this feature. We also did not want it to drop it on the customers without receiving feedback from the community. So for the next few versions, they're going to be in the preview mode. We are looking forward for the feedback from you guys. And then we are going to drop the preview and hide the existing layouts, and then they are going to be removed from the product. The main reason why we want to do this is because we want to get rid of macros and Visual Basic. That's our main driver. Also, if you would like to find them, they are exposed through the page search. you can easily find them. They're also in the Role Explorer, so it's quite easy to navigate to this. To go back to the slides, a different view into this, and this is the actual picture of what we did, is with the green circles, you can see that these reports have already been shipped. The yellow ones are the ones that we are planning to ship in the next version. And we have shipped most of the reports in the finance area. However, we also have 3 layouts that are tracking emissions. And for the other areas, the reports are also going to come. We are planning to implement more than 35 reports. Now, we get a lot of questions, even from internal developers. Shouldn't we be actually implementing Power BI? And the answer is no, because you need both in reality. So you will need both Power BI and Excel, since they are fitting different reporting needs. There is an excellent documentation topic that is listed here. You can find it in the slide sheet and access it after the presentation, that describes when should you use which and what is the benefit of Power BI or Excel and vice versa. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into this, and I would invite you to check it out. So that was all for the short intro, and now I'm handing it over for Niels-Henrik to show us how to build the data sets.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have behind the scenes before we actually get to the Excel layout or the Excel report itself. Sort of the platform, plain developer experience for the good old report object, what you need to consider when you want to build an Excel layout on top of a report or design a new report using Excel. One of the key features you have to remember when you want to do Excel is the new property that we highlighted in yellow, because that is the one that specifies that all top-level data items go to individual sheets, which means that you get a much more comprehensive data set. The other part that you have to think about, just take the headlines now, the data set definition itself. You have the request page, layout section with the number of layouts that you want to have in your report, 1 or more, and a group of labels that you want to have. When you have built all of this, you can publish your report extension and start to play around with it. Data set and data items are the core elements in the report definition, because that is where you define what do you want to have in your data. Data items map to the tables, and columns are to the fields in your individual tables, and you can have nested and you can have multiple root items. For instance, this case here where we have 3 different root items that will end up in 3 different data sheets in the Excel workbook. You also have to specify a table view where you can say define the sorting. You can also set filters that you want to have predefined, but be a little bit careful here that you don't filter too much out. For the request page, like the other reports, you define the filter fields that you want to have, and it's a good suggestion to find the most important fields and let them be on the request page from the beginning, so the user don't have to search for them or add fields individually. And there's a small hint that we found out that many times you use these buffer tables for data items, sort of temp tables where you calculate stuff based on other tables and fill it up. If you can, then stop doing that, because it actually takes quite a lot of memory from the NST when you run on the solutions. And there are some small other hints that we come up to later on. When you have this multi-worksheet, then we have the definition that the name of this root data item, the first one in the list, that will also be the worksheet name in the Excel workbook, like you see here, where we have the data contract between the dataset definition and the Excel workbook for the sheets that we have that we will fill out with data. So we have the sheet names, they are the same as the data item names, and we have the column names that map to the columns in the report definitions. You cannot change them because that will break the contract. And if we look a little bit deeper into how the data is organized and compared to the legacy way we did it before, if you look at the same set of data here, the green ones are the actual data, whereas the weak colored are the null fields. That means that we have a lot of repeated data. And if we just want to have this one, which actually maps to the single data sheet we have in the new implementation with multi-sheets enabled. So always take that one. If you migrate old sheets, you start by defining the Excel multiple worksheet as true, then you update the data sheet. And it also has a huge impact on how big this Excel workbook will be and how much time it actually takes to render it. Because if you have this multi-worksheet enabled, you actually get a 3 times size reduction, which is quite important when you have the bigger sheets. And there's also the benefit that the risk that you hit the Excel limit of 1 million rows is much smaller because we can have 1 million in each sheet. Previously, we just had one sheet, and it was easy to hit the limit, and there's nothing you could do about that. One of the key elements that we have that is crucial for especially the translation feature later on is how you use labels in your report definition. And there are several places where you can use them. You have labels in the report object itself, which we use for headers. You have column labels for each column in the data item, and remember that they are only included if you have this include caption property on the column. Otherwise, they will not be there. And if you really want to customize, then think about using caption class on the fields that sits behind this table, because then you can program the caption yourself. It's not static. And where will these caption data go in? There we have a new caption data workbook sheet where we get all the captions in, both for columns and labels, with the current language that you have when you run the report. And you also have the option for overriding if you don't like the value or you want to have a different language in or a new value. Then we have a different sheet called translation data, which is a user-defined sheet containing custom data that we will not touch when we update the workbook template. One of the last things that you have to remember for request page, we have these about text, about title that some people will think sit on the report object and can't find them, but they are actually on the request page because it's a UI element. And we use these 2 strings for defining text that the user can see. For instance, this trial balance Excel dialog is shown when you show the request page for the report. And we also have it in the aggregated metadata sheet, where we have the 2 strings that you can use in your workbook. One of the last things is the layout. We always use the new rendering syntax, which is an element we added to the AL reports a couple of years ago when we added report extensions. And here you can add 1 or more layouts to a report. And here you have to remember, if you want to do it nicely for the users, caption and summary are optional fields, but they actually appear in the pages that the end user can see when he wants to select a layout or select a layout from the request page. And you should remember to set the default rendering layout in the report object properties. If you have a already running report, then it's quite easy to add something new to that one. Because what you do is you go to the request page, you simply do a send to, and save the data set in a new Excel document. Download that one, and you can add it to the existing report in the layout section, in the rendering section, and start to update this layout with whatever you need to have. So it's quite easy to add. And when you're done, publish your report extension. Or if you want to play around, you can also use the page and have a sort of a user-defined layout that you just have in application side. This one here, just add one. And for the end of the platform part, let's take a look at some design considerations that you have to look at when you define the report itself. Look at what columns you need. Don't take too many, but don't ignore the ones that you might be using later on, because it's easier to add a new layout than to start with a new version of the report. Think about data item filters. Don't filter too much away. And think about row limits. Excel can handle 1 million rows in the workbook, but really consider if this is necessary, because it will take time for Excel to load the workbook. And if you have too many 1 million rows sheets, it will take more time than you want the end user to spend on it. And you should always think translation into the design here. So in your report extension, define the translation file and make sure that you get all your labels translated. And one of the last things to consider, if you want to have captions, don't use virtual tables. Virtual tables are platform tables that are in memory, and they don't have field captions, so you don't get any translation, you don't get any decent values for the captions. And one of the last things you should consider, the data aggregation. Where do you actually want to aggregate your data? Do you want to do that in Excel, or do you want to aggregate in BC and just have a limited set of rows in Excel? That depends on how much you want to operate on your data in Excel. The more you aggregate on BC, the less are your options in Excel. So that was all, more or less the platform part, and now we go to the magic part.
Thank you, Niels-Henrik. So now we are going to start with Excel magic, and for this thing we are going to recreate the trial balance layout. And the best way of doing it is simply if you build it and publish it, you're going to get the default template inserted, and when you download it, you will get the Excel that you can work with. And I have done this just to save some time. It's speeded up. It's not this fast, of course. And now if I switch to my machine to show you the demo, it's the same layout. It's completely blank, and it has these sheets that Niels-Henrik was mentioning. So you're going to get the translation data, caption data, and we are going to get 3 data sheets here. The reason why I'm doing it like this is because it's much easier for me to code and to make things in Excel if I can see the date. Otherwise, it's becoming quite difficult without the date. And the first thing that we are going to do is that we are going to start with Power Query, and also based on the pool, not many people, more than 90%, have never ever used the Power Query. And for this part, we are going to be using Excel as PowerPoint. And if you're wondering how you can turn the Excel into PowerPoint, you just go here and you uncheck the grid lines. And now it's a PowerPoint. The Excel masters say that you should not be using PowerPoint, but you should present everything in Excel. So the thing that I would want to say to you, if you have not been using the Excel, and so, yep, I have been using this Power Query a lot, and I love it. And I would strongly recommend to you to try it out. I like it so much I made a meme, you know, like how I'm looking when I'm coding in Excel. I have been maintaining our existing layouts and using macros, and it was not a fun experience at all. With Power Query, you can do almost anything that the macros can do, and in Microsoft, we want to stop using macros. You can use the macros in Excel. They are not going away. Excel team is going to be supporting them. However, us in Microsoft, we don't want to use it because it presents a security risk. And it's also complicating our code review significantly. Power Query is a shared technology, so you can use it both for Power BI and Excel. Its main purpose is to import and transform the data, and the language that it's using, it's called M. And it's not only Excel and Power BI, you can export it to anything else. Like you can use Microsoft Azure Data Lake Storage, Dataverse, Excel, Power BI. It's able to connect to the database, local files, and even web services to read the data from it and to write the data to all of these endpoints. So it is quite powerful. The good thing about it, it's very easy to use. If I would select everything here, to use it, I just need to go to data, and here I can say from table range, and I'm already in the Power Query. You don't need to learn M, you can use the UI, and there is a lot of things that you can do in UI. The first purpose that it is excellent for is strongly typing your data set. The thing here that you can see is that the account, it thinks it's an integer because we only have numbers. And we all know that the account is not the integer, but it is actually text. So we are going to switch it like this, and we will replace the current step because it is wrong. Then if you scroll a little bit more to the right, you will see that it thinks for some decimals that it is integers. And this is because we only have zeros in the demo data set. So you can see here change type, and I want it to be a decimal number. Additional thing that you can do is that if you don't want something, like I do not want this cell, I can just say remove, and then you're building steps on top. So you're building the transformation of your data. It's quite powerful. So as I said, you can get web services, you can transpose the different columns and rows, replace the values, fill the blanks. There is quite a lot that you can do. However, the two main things that we are doing is the first one is that we do not want any null values. So you will see this in our Excel layouts. So we say replace null with blank. The reason why we are doing this, and I also would need to do it here, and ideally it should be a single step, so don't pollute the steps. The main reason why we are doing this is because if you want to build some advanced table relationships, you're going to get this kind of error if nulls somehow end up in the data set. And this is confusing to the end users, so we want to be sure that this case does not happen. And also one of the things that we are going to do in our data sets is that if null is in the decimal, we are going to set it to 0. Also for the date times, we are going to set it to something like 100 years in the past, so it's clearly visible that something is wrong, thus, but still to be able to use the data that we have created. In our layouts, you will also see that we have suffixed all of the queries with query, with underscore query. And the reason why we did this is to be able to distinguish what is a query and what is actually the data sheet that we received from the platform. And basically, when you're done with the transformation, the thing that you can do is that you can say, I want to close this one and load it to something else. And now I'm not sure how much you can see, but the options are table, pivots, and only creating the connections. So we are usually loading the main data into tables because we want to enable the end users to use the data. If you have something that you want to keep in memory, you can only create the connection, and then it's kept in memory. So if I would say here, please load it as the query, now I'm getting all of the transformed data, and it's ready to be exposed to the end users. If you want it to refresh when the file opens, the way of doing this is if you click Properties, and you have the following options. This background refresh needs to be unchecked because the background refresh is loading the data asynchronously. So if you have multiple queries, pivots, the data is not going to load properly. And then the user will need to click Refresh All. And you want to check this one. Yes, I want it to refresh when the file opens. And of course, you want this Refresh All. The last option is Enable Fast Data Load. This one is useful to help you to load the data faster. However, the UI is going to be less responsive. But since the user needs to wait for this, it's a good idea to check it. Now, we could do the same things with the dimension 1 and the dimension 2. We could maybe even merge these queries so you can get a nice dimension name here. That's very easy to do. However, we will not have time in this presentation to do it. So now, when I'm done with the Power Query, it's time to move to the next topic, And the next topic is pivot tables, because this is a frequent request from the customers. And people are asking a lot for the pivot tables. So I'm going to show you how are we usually building the pivot table. So if I would create a customer-facing sheet and move it to the front, the way to do the pivot table is going just like this, and I would say insert from table range, and here I can select the entire query, and now the pivot table is more or less ready. And now I can insert the rows here. I'm going to set the account, and I want the account name, and I also want the account type. And the things that I want to summon is, for example, balance debit and balance credit, and let's also put the net change, for example, right? So this pivot table is already nicely shaping up. The trick that we do is that sometimes you don't want this tree, because in this case it is looking ugly. In some cases you want the tree to be able to expand and collapse. However, in this case we are just listing the additional columns. And this is the trick that I got from Jeremy Viska. So to get the table rendering more nicely is that you go here and you can select how the pivot is being shown. And one of the common options that we are using is to show it in the tabular form like this. And then if in the subtotals you say do not show subtotals, then you're getting it rendering nicely. So this is something that we want. And we are using this pattern a lot, actually, in our code. And the last thing that we need is that if we go to the pivot table options, and here we want to uncheck these expand collapse buttons. However, we need to say we want to refresh data when opening file. And now when the customer opens the file, the entire data is going to be automatically loaded and reloaded. So that was the second main component that we are using. The third cool thing about the Excel layouts is translations. Translations are extremely valuable, and this is something that our end customers are asking for a lot. And this previous report layouts are supporting this, and we needed this to be supported in the new ones. Also, the problem with Excel is that Excel is not handling languages really well. Excel is usually being delivered in a single language. So in this case, we have something that is quite unique in the market, and this is our ability to translate in the sheet without writing AL code. So to show you how you can do this one, is that you can go to the caption data, and if you select this trial balance LCY, and you go to the sheet, the only thing that I need to do is that I need to put the dollar signs around it. And now the platform is going to automatically translate it by using AL translations. So when we are rendering this report in the platform, we will go through all of the dollar signs, dollar, caption dollar, and if we can match it, if it is matching the data that is listed in the caption data, we will automatically translate the values. Niels-Henrik, quick question, on which elements are we able to use this?
We can actually use it in most of the UI elements in the Excel workbook, both for sheet names, headers, we can use it in pivot tables, charts, all the places where you usually have captions that you want to show to end users.
Yes, so
but there could be, of course, be places we haven't found yet. So if you find something that is not translatable, then just let us know, we'll fix it.
Yes, so I'm here updating the captions while Niels-Henrik was speaking. And now we can get this entire pivot table together with the sheet translated. Also, the translations work with something like slicers. So if I would like to add a slicer on the dimension 1 code, you can also get a slicer translated. However, be sure that you are translating a caption and not the name of the slicer. And in this case, all of the UI elements are going to be automatically translated.
It's quite important that you always use the captions in the UI elements, because names are Excel internal. So if you try to do a dollar in front of a name, Excel will show an error later on, next time you try to load it.
Yes, and to show you also a second thing here, Yep. Some of the UI elements are not going to be translated, and the things that will not be translated are the things that you cannot change. So for example, grand totals, that's going to be in the language that the Excel is in, because Excel is not going to let you to change this value. It is something that they type in automatically. If I would like to add an additional language, for example, let's say that I would like to add French, do I need to go to AL or can I do it in Excel?
You can do everything in Excel, because what you do is you go to the captured data worksheet, and then you copy all the key values and paste them into the translation data sheet, which is a user sheet. And here you can add the translation language that you want to have, and you can paste in the translated values that matches this key value.
Yes, so something like this. I have it already ready. It's a cheat sheet.
So there's no need to involve an AL developer just to get a new language for your Excel workbook. You can do it yourself.
And basically, if I would like to add something like here that I have in the cheat sheet, like Hello TechDays, am I able to do this as well? So
yeah, because you can simply add a new caption key for the translation data sheet, and then add the languages that you want to have for that one. So it's easy to add new strings to the system. You simply add them to the translation data workbook and add the values that you want to have in the language that you want to have. And the languages are using the usual culture names.
Yep.
So you can have multiple, and the default value, if you don't specify anything, is the US English.
All right. So I think we are ready, right? I should only also provide the English US here if I would like the default, right? Because I don't have it in the data set, so I need all of the languages that I want this one. Super. So when you're ready and you have done everything, and we have this small Excel layout here, the thing that we usually do at the end is that we clean up the data like this. And here we delete the table rows, and then if we go back to the data and we refresh everything, you can see that now it is blank, and this is a very good test if you have forgotten some references. In general, you will see also our layouts that we ship them with no data, and from the Power Query you can see this blank text that automatically got replaced. Now, if I forget to clean some sheets, what is happening then?
Yeah, the platform will take care of it. So when you import the new layout with data, we will delete the data when you import it, because you really don't want to have data in a layout that can be sent to a different customer in a different company. So we try to make sure that you don't share data by mistake during layouts.
All right. So Microsoft has turned on some security here, and I need to change it to non-business. Yes, otherwise I would not be able to upload it. And here, if we would like to run it, we can do it also without any code. So I can go to upload the layout. So, and the way how I do this is that I type new, and then I call it TechDays demo. And I say OK. And here I can select the layout, and I was making this one. The thing that you also need to do, which I didn't do, is to close it and save it, because otherwise it's not going to let you upload it. Which is a good safety check as well, that you have saved everything that you need. And here if you filter, and you set the filter to be this ID, now we have the TechDays demo. I have switched the language to be French, and now if I say run report, you will see that we are running in French, and it's going to run. And when you open it, the thing that you will see, it is Bonjour TechDays. There is no big red security warnings for macros, so you can just enable the content, and everything is auto-loaded and refreshed. So yes, this was a short demo of how you can add the additional things and get the translations enabled. Now, for the other cool things that we will briefly mention here, one thing is the aggregated metadata sheet. And this sheet here is actually hidden. So if you say unhide, and you say I want to see the aggregated metadata sheet, in this sheet you're going to get a lot of information about this report and about the environment that created it. So you'll get some information about the platform and the report itself. Here is the environment information, so you can see the environment name, you can also see the company name and company ID. Company name is useful if you want to show it in the sheet, so the user is able to see to which company does this data belong to, while the company ID is very useful if you want to consume the data through the APIs. You can use BC APIs and show the data straight into these Excel layouts. There is a username that has created this report, also the date, and the language that the report was created. Additional usage that you can use this one is to create the lookups into the BC UI from the Excel, which is also a really cool usage. If they would like to find additional data, they can use lookup. We also emit the request page filters. So if user has filtered something, you can use this information to show it in the UI. There is a cool feature as well that we are going to change the existing functionality, and this one is called names, and you can assign the name to the variable, and we are going to start using it more in our layouts because it simplifies formulas significantly. Now, Niels-Henrik, just to ask you quickly, if people would like to remove this aggregated metadata sheet, is that possible automatically or not?
Currently, we don't automatically delete it, but there is nothing that prevents you from deleting the sheet. If you want to send your Excel workbook to someone, you can simply delete it. It's not needed, and if you delete it from the layout, it will be recreated when you run the report. So it's a machine-generated sheet that can be removed if you don't want to. But if we get enough feedback, we might add an option, so the sheet will be optional if you don't need it. For instance, if we always want to send workbooks to external parties where you don't want to show this information, then we can make it optional.
Super. Now, for one thing that we do not have time, unfortunately, today is about applying templates and styles. We are going to publish the guide how you can do it in less than 3 minutes. There are a few tricks that you can do in Excel to do this rather quickly. And the developer that did the sustainability reports done them in the green layout, and then he was forced to apply this blue theme. He wasn't very happy, but he was able to do it very quickly, with the tricks that we did. There are refreshable Excel layouts. Tanya has done them, and also Renato has promised to write something about it. We have an extension to generate the data, so you can demo them in a nicely way, and it was done by Jeremy Wiska. And you can also build the dashboards. There is a really nice Excel topic, how you can create and manage the dashboards in Excel. One of the things that we wanted to do, and we received the feedback from the Excel team, that we have too many slicers. And the Excel guys have recommended to us to create the first sheet with slicers, and then this sheet can control all of the other sheets. So you go to the first sheet, you set how you want to see the data, and then you can just navigate across the tabs and do it. And before we move on, I forgot to say one important thing that I got from AJ Ansari. So I'm going back to the Power Query. There is an excellent topic which is called Dashboard in a Day, and this is trainings for Power BI. However, they're explaining Power Query in really nice way with large amounts of details. And here you have the instructor content link that you can use to download it, and there you will find really nice trainings about the Power Query. Yep. And that was it. So you got all of the information that you need, so now you're ready to become an Excel wizard. And we are going to switch back to the slides. And if we forward on. So we would really like to hear back from you. And we would like to invite you to try out the things that you have seen today. You can join us on Yammer, and please provide feedback here to the things after trying them out. We are also very interested in the things that you have done, so we can see how you're using the platform and all of the things that we did. And we are going to be posting additional content with larger level of details, also additional tips and tricks in Excel on the Yammer, because we could not cover everything today. The goal was to give you an end-to-end overview of how does the process looks like. I would like to give a special kudos to Tanya for writing these comprehensive guides, how you can build refreshable APIs, how you can use refreshable APIs in Excel layouts. She has written an excellent documentation topic, step-by-step guide that you can use to create the refreshable Excel reports. And the last thing that I would like to say is that when you're designing the Excel reports, think if it needs to be frozen in time or if you want to use the APIs. One of the limitations that is preventing us from using the APIs is the fact that it's hard to use the APIs with request page. So if you want to get a nice user experience, refreshable Excel layouts it's a little bit hard to do it with the request page. Yes, and we'll have some time for questions. Yep. So where is the box?
Good question.
I see it. So who had the question?
One over here.
Yep.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
The caption and the translation are picked from the XLF file.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Huh?
So, sorry, you were saying what? Can you repeat the question?
The caption and the translation
Yes.
in the Excel are picked from the XLF file.
They are picked up from the AL object itself. So
the caption worksheet is generated when you run the report. So the captions will be written to the Excel workbook in the language that you have when you run the report instance. So when we go to the request page and do send to Excel or you run the report, then we get all the caption data and store in the caption worksheet with the language that you have selected.
Okay.
yes, so to show you this one is that if you say include caption on the field, as Niels-Henrik said, it's going to be automatically emitted as translated value. And there is also a labels section if you want to define the global labels. You can find it in the code here. So I think it is somewhere around here. You see labels, and these are global labels. The also cool trick, and thanks for asking this, is that you can get the dynamic translations if you use the caption class 3, and this including datasets. In our reports that we did, you can see that we are automatically replacing the dimension code with the actual value. So you can get these translations on the fly.
Okay. Okay. Okay then.
Yep. Any more questions? Yes?
One over here.
I have two questions. The first one is, can we hide this additional caption sheet and the other one with the languages?
Yes,
and is it going to cost I mean, when we create the Excel as a layout, can we hide it, pre-hide it, so that when the report is printed, it doesn't show them?
Yeah, you can hide all of the data sheets that we generate, and also the translation data sheet can be hidden.
But before or
Yes.
after it is printed?
No, if you upload the layout, or if you put it in the extension, whatever you put in it, it's going to become default for everybody. So if you say here, I want to hide all of these things, and you hide the information, it's going to be saved. And you can just hide it, and then each time when you download the layout, it's going to be hidden out of the box.
And if you print the report, it will also not show
It shouldn't, but you control what you print, right? I would need to check this one because yeah, we didn't test
Okay.
printing that much.
Okay, okay.
I
And
believe that there is probably a way of just saying that I don't want to print these sheets.
yes,
I would
yes,
assume that.
this is my question. Can I say print only the data like the data from the data sets without this additional
Yep.
sheets? Okay, and the second question is about this Power Query thing that you showed and the additional sheet that you created. You said that it creates a connection. Does it mean that if we save the report, so we print it and we save it, and tomorrow we will open it again and it will refresh the data automatically, or we have to print the report again?
It all depends where you're getting the data from, right? In my example, I have downloaded it from BC, and then we're getting the data from the sheet, and it's going to stay like that forever, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but if you use Tanya's example, where she's reading it from the API, then it's going to be refreshing it all the time.
Okay.
And it's up to you how you want to build it, right? Do you want it frozen in time? Like this was the state today? Or if you want to enable them to use Excel and not to go to BC to constantly refresh the data.
Okay.
Can
thank-
also be more advanced and
Thanks.
have multiple queries in the workbook, and some that they actually read data from the report, and some that read data from other sources. It's up to your sort of.
Yep.
That's a challenge for you.
Any other questions? Or we are also a bit over time. Yeah, let's do one more. And then, oops, yep, almost. Then come down and we can discuss. We'll stay.
We are asking if you have created this layout now and put it in the report, then you need 3 additional columns in one of the data sets.
Yep.
How do you handle that?
It's very simple. So if you need the 3 additional columns in the data set,
Yeah,
you can go straight to the data set and add them, and they will be automatically exposed to the pivot itself. Or you can just add the 3 additional columns to your report, and then you go to the template that you have, and you expose them in this data tab that I have just hidden, so I cannot show you, right?
okay, so I can add them manually.
Yes, you can add them manually.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
perfect.
Right, Niels-Henrik, I'm not
Yeah.
saying something
And
wrong.
if you, for instance, have a report that you want to extend, we also support the standard report extensibility, so you can go and add new data items, new columns to an extension on top of an existing report.
Yes,
No problem.
You would need to update this one and also the query if you're using the Power Query.
Yeah.
And then the pivot is going to automatically get them. Yep. All right, thank you all very much.